Good afternoon, Bison fans, and welcome to our Bucknell Field Hockey Virtual Season Show. My name is Todd Newcomb, and I'm joined today by Maisha Kelly, our Senior Associate AD for Development. And we want to take this opportunity to thank Giant for sponsoring this year's season preview series. Giant's been a great partner of Bison Athletics, and we thank them for all they do. So we've got a great lineup for you today, featuring head coach Jeremy Cook and three of our current players, Aaron Zielinski, Meg Keaney, and Sarah Dimick. Time now to welcome in the head coach of the Bison, Jeremy Cook.
Hey there.
Thanks for joining us today, Jeremy.
Oh, my pleasure.
So Jeremy is in his 13th season as the head coach of the Bison and is ranked second all-time at Bucknell with 114 victories. He's led the team to the Patriot League tournament in each of his 12 seasons, including 4 appearances in the championship game. And prior to arriving at Bucknell, he had coaching stops at Indiana, Penn, Drexel, American, and Cornell, and he's also had extensive international coaching experience as well. A 2002 Drexel University graduate, Jeremy had an outstanding playing career as a member of Team USA, and prior to that, as a member of the Hockey Club Rotterdam in the Netherlands. Jeremy, we'd like to start things today with some questions about return to play from Maisha.
Jeremy, great to see you. Thanks for joining us. So can you just illuminate for us a bit we know that there's been extensive planning from a safety standpoint to get us to this point of the year, and talk to us about what some of the daily protocols are that the staff and the student athletes have to engage in and be thinking about during this time.
Oh my gosh, where to begin? So there's what we're dealing with is a lot of risk assessment with transmission in terms of both trying to avoid actually getting COVID and then not putting yourself in a position where you would be exposed to COVID, which sometimes are two different things. And so, everything from the locker room having a lower capacity and having to plan and schedule out and take a lot of leadership from the team in terms of how to schedule time in the locker room, to walking out to the field in big groups is a no-no. We've been, limited to, sort of groups of 3 while we're walking out there. They can't congregate as they come into the field. We have a hand sanitizer on the ball cart. There's all kinds of things that we do on a daily. I'm washing the pennies every day, which for some of our alumni that played in stinky pennies would probably have been a benefit from that for them, from their perspective. But there's just a lot of things like that where it's, we've had to be very intentional about defining our bubble. I think that's been one of the bigger learning curves this semester for our students in terms of, who's gonna, if somebody gets it, are you definitely gonna get it, or are you definitely gonna be contact traced, and trying to limit that group to as few people as you can so we don't sort of wipe out a large swath of the team with a single positive. And that's, I think one of the themes that's emerged for us is kind of putting the we above the me and making decisions for the entire group rather than just yourself.
So it sounds like perhaps there's at least a positive outcome of clean pennies moving forward for the field hockey team. So good stuff. But so in addition to certainly the health and safety, which of course is the priority, we are looking at a Patriot League season. And so the question here is, how much have you and your other peers, colleagues, head coaches in the Patriot League, what kinds of conversations did you get to engage in when it came down to scheduling, creating a Patriot League schedule, and then also just expectations and how the conversation might go should a team have to pivot for a reason related to the environment?
Yeah, it's been really challenging. The Patriot League has actually been quite collaborative with some of this stuff. So we had about, I think, probably 4 big Zooms over the course of the fall, gathering input from the various coaches throughout the league, just because each one of us has a very unique situation. And so in each institution is handling the general return of the student body very differently. And so with each having unique issues and each having unique challenges, it's sort of like it's a tough thing to try to get that all together. The league set the standards quite early in terms of no overnights for our groups, which then limits the number of teams that we have access to just in terms of travel. And so then from that standpoint, it was, kind of an easy thing putting the schedule together on top of that to make sure we had a minimum number of games heading into a potential tournament. And that, that's challenging because now it's, we won't play Boston or Holy Cross this year. American won't play either of those teams either. And so then that sets up kind of a need for a little bit of an outside the box ranking system for the playoffs. And so there's been a lot of discussion on that, a lot of input from the coaching group around how to rank out the teams and, like sort of a new way of looking even at sort of a tiebreaker there. And so that's been really interesting to be a part of that. I think it seems a little bit surreal, honestly, standing 6 days away from a game after so much planning this fall and so many what ifs and all of that kind of stuff. It's a bit of an odd sort of, I guess this is gonna happen kind of thing, where we've been hoping for this outcome the whole time, and we'll have our fingers crossed all week to really look at this as, hopefully this will happen, but we're still, hedging our bet and are unsure whether it actually will. So.
Sure. Well, certainly there has been a lot to, as we talk about, right, pivot from and think about, and just all that's invested in
Yeah.
preparing. And the women certainly have done an investment and invested in different ways. So what have you observed from the mental and physical standpoint, just how they've been challenged, how they've persevered and shown their resolve through this time?
It's been incredible, honestly. Like, I've been so impressed with the group. It's somewhat ironic in a way that last January, before all this started, we had our, sort of annual pre-spring SWAT meeting where we talk about strengths and weaknesses, opportunities, and things like that. And one of the big things that we identified last January was uncertainty and changing of schedules were actually a big challenge for us. And then all of the world went bonkers, and everything just became quite difficult in that specific area. I mean, that was one of our top 3 things that we had talked about. And so this entire year has been sort of a challenge in dealing with uncertainty and dealing with not knowing what's going to happen day to day, not being able to plan more than a couple days out. And the entire group has embraced it. We talk about controlling the controllables and how their own fitness and their own preparation physically is one of the things that's within their control. And they've embraced that and are so fit. It's been amazing to see how the group came back, how we hit the ground running when we were allowed to, and how strong the whole team looks in terms of their physical preparedness. The mental aspect of it has been challenging for them as well. They've had to really lean on each other. We have a very, very close-knit group. That's one of the things that we really hang our hat on. And it's been to have that directly challenged by the pandemic, that, okay, no, you can't have team gatherings and have the physical contact and the proximity that we're used to, and have that sort of that group culture feel to our program, and how to recreate that without the ability to do it in person has been a very interesting challenge. But they've stepped up. They each have their own issues and are battling through that. But we look at positivity not as necessarily sort of sunshine and rainbows, but Carrie Bears. We look at it more as coping strategy, right? So do you have a positive way that you can deal with adversity? And I've just been blown away, so impressed with the group so far with how they've done.
Jeremy, I think you hit the nail on the head. I think for those of us that are quote unquote insiders to the department and see what you and the student athletes have to go through every day, it's been amazing how everybody has really stepped up and worked their way through the uncertainty and put their best foot forward and been as positive as they can. My question for you now is, as I mentioned, you're in your 13th year here. How have you seen the hockey program and the athletics department evolve during that time?
That's a tough question. Sort of an ever-evolving thing, right? I think that there's been a gradual move in my time here, with some bits and starts to it for sure, like some little spikes in it, but a gradual move toward creating a very professional environment for the student athletes. There's opportunities to address mental health issues. There's opportunities to address performance health issues. There's opportunities for leadership development. There's opportunities for all kinds of things within the structure that we have here that didn't exist 13, 14 years ago. And so it's with that holistic approach, it does create an environment where if as the students come through our program, they obviously have unique needs as they come through, and all of those, there's a way to address all of those different things as they come through, where there wasn't a long time ago. And I think that really speaks highly of our sort of our mission of creating that kind of environment for our students.
Jeremy, I've had the pleasure of having front row seat to much of what has happened over in your program for the last several years, but particularly your substituting strategies and how that was implemented, how it's evolved, and knowing that you substitute a lot. And I know you have I won't be profess to know that I can dig in back to your strategy there, but I know that you substitute a lot, and it's based off of formulas that you've developed and used over time. How much more important does substituting get to be this year, given your preparation, the abbreviatedness of preseason, and then just even the season itself?
Oh, good question. We'll see. Like it's a to be determined a little bit here. I think that what's interesting for me is like I know that we all have a tendency when we believe in something to like, every time that we have an obstacle in front of us, we sort of dig into our own opinions. But it's like we're going to be able to start a team here of, we have 14 or 15 of us that have seen significant amount of playing time. Like we're not going to have a new player. We could start a team without a new player in any position. And I think that makes us pretty unique. I think that has contributed to sort of the steady growth of our team rather than the sort of up and down that you see with some groups. Like we have a lot of playing time built into the group. It's just we're pretty deep. And so looking at it as a maybe we'll lose a few players here and there that are contact traced or heaven forbid end up positive for COVID, it helps us with that. I think looking at it from a coaching standpoint and having an impact during an actual athletic performance, it really helps because you can put someone out there for 6 minutes, have them run their tail off, and then they come back to you and you can give them immediate feedback and maybe a point in the right direction or just a pat on the back. Figuratively, in terms of how to address the next 6 minutes that they get on the field. So I'm even more bought into that whole idea than I even was previously. We also have been really lucky. I mean, the university has supported us using the GPS and heart rate monitor stuff. That's just been extraordinary for us over the last few years. And the engineering department's been a lot of fun collaborating with them on a few studies and sort of figuring out how long actually someone needs to rest and whether the physiological components match the mental needs in terms of rest has been a really fun thing to try to look at.
So part of your answer to the question that you just had segues perfectly into mine. And this may not be a fair question, Jeremy, so I'm throwing that out there right up front. Give us a look of a tentative lineup from your squad, starting with your goalie and working your way to the front line.
Okay, we've had 2 full team practices in the last.
That's why I said it may not be a fair
months.
question.
We return 3 out of 3. We return our starting center back, and then a right back in Aaron, who will be on the call later. We have a Grace McAvoy was splitting games half and half at right back. Cookie Madison Hatcher was playing left back as a substitute for Kaylin, and so she'll be very strong in that position, I imagine. The midfield line, we have 2 out of 3 of our center midfielders returning. So that's Sarah Dimick and Kayla Kisthart. The outside midfielder is a little bit of an unknown. We're probably going to end up converting a couple strikers to move back, including Meg, who's on the call. We'll see how that goes. We have a ton of playing experience in that. Our center striker it looks like it will be Mackenzie. And so Mackenzie Kyle, who was the understudy for that starting role last year. I think she did start a couple games, but was the understudy. So she played about a third to a half of each game last year in that role. And so she'll be starting, but then playing about the same amount of minutes that she did last year. Outside strikers, we're returning our leading goal scorer for the last year that we played, so 2019. She only played, I think, 8 out of the 18 games that we had that year, and ended up still being our leading goal scorer, or at least tied for it or up in the top 2 or 3. So Emily Doyle has had some injury issues, and so she missed half of that 2019 season, but she is back and looking awesome, and so she'll definitely play a part up front. Right wing, we still don't know. We have a couple players that have played a lot, and then we have a couple freshmen that are just crushing it at practice. So as they learn kind of what our standards and expectations are on the defensive side, that'll help them sort of earn playing time.
You handled that
Other
well
than that,
under
I haven't
pressure.
thought about it.
You handled that well under pressure.
So, well, we're going to dig in just a little bit more. Just give us your scouting report. Introduce us to some of those newcomers to the program.
Yeah, so I mean, there's a few big names in there that I think will feature this year, and then the entire class is looking really strong for down the road. We have our we'll start maybe furthest away to most local. We have a young woman from Zimbabwe, Gugu Sibanda, that's joined us, and she's showing a lot of promise, has a ton of speed, is adapting well to the culture. I think that's probably the biggest issue, is just it's just different. You know, the hockey's different, the food is different, the classes are different, everything's different. This is the first time she's been in snow. You know, like just the pandemic on top of all that, it's just a crazy amount of adaptation on her part, and she's doing a really good job of that. It's going to take some time before she's, I think, 100% comfortable and thriving in her environment, but she's well on her way. We've got a couple folks from St. Louis, Mia and Sydney, both of which, one up front, one in the back. They're both going to probably play some minutes this year. They're coming in with a really high level of skill, and their fitness has been outstanding. We have a young woman from Rhode Island. This is the most geographically diverse class we've seen. Young woman from Rhode Island who's grease lightning. We did some speed work yesterday, and it used to be, we had one of our seniors this year was also recruited by the track team, Leah. And so, but then now it's a really close race, and it didn't used to be. Like the last few years, she's dominated our speed stuff, and now we have a few freshmen that are really challenging for that, and one sophomore as well. So. And then as we get a little bit more local, we have one from down near Harrisburg area, Rachel Appa, whose dad played football at Lehigh, and she's just worked out like a monster, and she's coming in super fast, super fit, tons of fun ideas, creativity, and skill in the field, and she'll play a big part up front. I think this year, I think she'll get a lot of minutes. And then Bucknell, famous last name, Carrie Melberger, and so her grandfather Mickey, I think, played football here. Is that right, Todd?
Correct.
And she did everything right in the off season, is super dedicated and focused. She's coming out of this fantastic club from out in the Wilkes-Barre area that's really, really taken off lately. And Kari's coming in way, way ahead of a normal freshman. I mean, she really has taken it very seriously and done everything that she needed to do to jump in and contribute. And so we're hoping, we'll see, you know, like we want to experiment a little bit more with where she is in the field. Field hockey is one of those sports where it's not like super duper positionally specific, like you can move people around a little bit. You just have to give them a little heads up and a little practice before you throw them into a game, which we don't necessarily have time for, but you know, she'll do a great job no matter where we end up putting her.
All right. So one final question for you, Jeremy. And I think it's an important one. I mean, there's assistant coaches to every program, and they're not usually in the limelight. So can you introduce your new assistant, Alexa, and tell us what she's brought to the team so far and how important she is to the program?
Well, we during the hiring process, I sent a list of the qualities of assistant coach that the team was looking for. And one of the top 3 on every single one was keeping me in check. And so that seems to be a role that Alexa has embraced and is doing a good job of it. It takes usually a year or so for coaches, the people that we work with, like the coworkers here, to get comfortable to the point where they can sit in my office and tell me that I'm completely wrong, and what I had in mind was a terrible idea and I should totally change course. And so we're getting there, you know, she's already there. She's just absolutely wonderful, a very, very positive person. Grew up very close to sort of our recruiting base, and so she knows of a bunch of our student athletes already, just from friends in common. And so, yeah, she's already really joined us and had a really positive sort of impact on the group that way.
Well, we're happy that she's here helping you out and keeping you in line. And we're happy your team's going to see a game here, hopefully in 6 days. So good luck to you and your program this season, Jeremy.
Thank you. Thank
All
you
right,
very much. Yeah, it's like when I see it on that field, I don't know. I'm hoping that the floodgates don't open up and all of us are just so emotional by the moment. We're going to prep for that a little this week about talking about what that's going to be like. But after going this long without a competitive outlet, it's almost surreal that we're going to have one in 6 days. So
Well, best of luck.
Thank you both for all the work that you've done on our behalf. I know that there's so much that goes on behind the scenes, both in terms of actual work on the logistics and advocacy to really make this all happen. So thank you both.
Absolutely.
You're most welcome. All right, time now to welcome in our 3 current players to today's program. Welcome, ladies. And then we'll turn our attention first to Erin. Erin is a junior defender from Downingtown, Pennsylvania, where she attended Villa Maria Academy. Thanks for joining us today, Erin.
Thanks so much for having me.
So can you start us off by telling the Bison fans out there who may not know your story, how did you wind up playing hockey at Bucknell?
Yeah, that's a great question. I feel like when I was on my college search, I really tried to find a place that fit me both academically and athletically. Obviously, I wanted a place where I could play field hockey, but that's not everything. And I was really looking for a place that valued that academic aspect of it. So when coming to Bucknell for camp and after having a conversation with Jeremy and the assistant coaches at the time, and kind of learning more about the players and the atmosphere that our team has, I really appreciated the academic commitments, and I really loved everything that I saw. It was awesome to visit here and kind of grow a part of the team.
So Erin, perfect lead into my question, because now that you saw Bucknell as that opportunity where you could engage in the things that were important to you in academics and athletics. And so now, after having been here for a few years, how do you balance it? What are the tips that you provide to prospective student athletes and even underclassmen?
Yeah, time management, finding some good friends for sure. And I think the best part about being a student athlete in particular is kind of having the support of the team behind your back, no matter what avenue you're kind of going down, because though this is a slightly smaller institute, everyone kind of knows everyone. So you're always able to kind of get your foot in the door no matter where you're trying to go.
Thank you.
So Bucknell had an unusually long break between semesters this year because of the environment we're in. How did you and the team maintain a bond for more than 2 months with everyone spread out all over the country? And then how were you able to maintain or work on any of your hockey skills during the break?
Yeah, this break was really tough, in addition to being a little bit longer than traditionally. Not having seen my team as much as I normally would have in the fall was definitely hard. That social media came in quite handy this past winter break. We use an app called Strava a ton to kind of track each other's workouts, give each other some positive feedback, give each other some laughs. We definitely had a ton of team Zooms, whether it was just talking about tactics that we were kind of introducing the freshmen to, or more so fun, just Jeopardy games or things of that sorts. And just really keeping in touch with each other via text messages and things of that sorts.
So our next question is from one of our viewers today, and this is from Tom right here in Lewisburg. And he wants to know, who will be your toughest competition in the Patriot League this season and why?
Oh, that's a great question. I think we're definitely looking forward to playing American and Lafayette again this season. Coming off of last season, having struggled against those two teams, I think our team is really looking forward to showing the work that we've put in this past year or so, and really giving it everything we got, because in 2021, there's nothing to lose.
So Erin, as one of the more mature and upperclassmen on the squad, we heard Coach talk about the newcomers to the program. How have you guys been able to reach out to them, welcome them to the team, make them feel a part of the program when it's been obviously a very unusual circumstance for any freshman whatsoever across the country these days.
Yeah, I mean, I can't, just being a freshman in general, things are so stressful coming to college and everything. And then throwing the pandemic and field hockey on top of that, I can't imagine what they went through. I think it kind of, again, being part of a team makes things 10 times better, because you have 20 some other people to ask questions to, give you rides to the grocery store, or take you out on a Lewisburg freeze trip, kind of do all those sorts of things in between. And so while we really didn't get to connect with them on a hockey sense as much because we couldn't play as much, I think we were really able to get to know them a little bit better kind of off the field, which will definitely translate onto the field this upcoming spring.
So now that you've had, albeit a very small window, but a chance to see some of it on the field, are there any of the newcomers that really catch your eye or you think are going to be big contributors right away?
I think the freshmen have done outstanding, kind of like Jared mentioned. Some of them definitely have a track or cross-country-ish background. So we have some definitely speedy freshmen that are going to bring a lot to the table, and we're really looking forward to seeing that. But overall, they all have some awesome capabilities, and I think they're all going to contribute in their own way really, really incredibly this season.
Well, we're really glad that you're finally getting the opportunity to get out there. I know it's been a very frustrating and trying time for our student athletes. So good luck to you and the rest of your team this spring.
Thanks so much.
All right, so our next player is senior midfielder Meg Keaney, who hails from just down the road in Selinsgrove, Pennsylvania, where she had a standout career for the Seals. Welcome, Meg, and thanks for being here today.
Thank you for having me.
Oh, absolutely. So same question for you out of the box. How'd you wind up at Bucknell? I mean, you must have heard of it since you're only a few miles away.
Yeah, I grew up just always coming to Bucknell, being familiar with the campus. I remember going to basketball games with my friends, like in middle school, and I just kind of always loved the campus feel. I actually got the chance to play my high school playoff games on Bucknell's turf, and it was honestly such a great experience. Like, we loved coming up here to play on that turf. And I just remember after talking and getting recruited by Jeremy, I was like, wow, this would be so cool to play on this field again, wearing a Bucknell uniform. And I kind of just went through the whole process. At first thinking I wanted to go far from home, but then realizing that every other school I visited, I just compared it to Bucknell, and Bucknell just felt like home to me. So I couldn't leave. But yeah, best choice I've made. Love the campus and the teammates.
Meg, so now as a senior, how have you helped to lead this team, knowing that we all know, right? So the challenges of this past year, how have you seen yourself or even tasked yourself to step up and lead through this time?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing that I've learned through this time, especially with the pandemic, is just kind of reaching out and like being available for your teammates, not only in like the field hockey sense, but just kind of as a friend, like just checking in, trying to go above and beyond and like plan things that normally like wouldn't. Like, we've been going on lots of walks. Like, we love going on the rail trail. Like, I don't know in a normal season where we would have that much time to just go on like an hour walk. Basically just anything, or if we're all going to the field to hit around, we'll put something in the group message. Just kind of, I think, knowing that just you're there for them for any support, whether it's classes or fitness wise. I think that's been the biggest thing, just in that leadership role for this semester.
So we talked to Erin a little bit about the unusually long break and how you might be able to stay fit and up on your hockey skills during that time. What's it been like in terms of trying to practice? Now you're finally able to practice as a team, but there were times where we had stoppages and you guys had to work in small groups. What were you able to accomplish as a small group, and how were you able to keep those skills intact and ready to go when you finally got the chance to be out there as a team?
Yeah, small groups are definitely tough, but they do allow you to really focus on just honestly individual stick work, because you're getting more and more reps than you typically would in a larger group, and a lot more fitness, especially with just doing some of the drills and running back and forth. But I'm overall very excited that we are back in this large group, because just the game concepts that you get from the large group practices are so much more beneficial than small group. You really just have to focus on small game and more like individual skill rather than like big game tactical stuff. So I'm glad we actually get to all be together and work on our pressing lines and just overall our goals for the season.
So we have another question from a viewer. It's also right here in Lewisburg from Terry. And she'd like to know, how has the pandemic brought you together as a team? And what are some of the challenges that you feel like you've had to overcome yourself during this time?
That's a good question. Yeah, it's weird because you would think being in a pandemic and not being able to see each other all the time would definitely maybe drive us apart a bit. But honestly, I think it kind of brought us closer because we're all just going through this, the uncertainty, like Jeremy talked about in the beginning. It's a huge challenge, especially just like me being a senior going into my last senior season. I was really upset in the fall not being able to compete. And I think we were kind of going through that. Like I was working so hard with the uncertainty if we would even get a season, which is really tough, especially for us seniors, just knowing that everything we've put in for the last 4 years, like it was just so tough. But now seeing that we actually have a game scheduled in 6 days, which is super exciting. And I think just going through all this with a positive mindset and just this whole time we've acted like we've been having a season, like even over the summer, we all had running competitions. We have little field hockey families with composed of players from each grade level that we would always keep in contact with. Like we read a book together, used Strava, like Aaron said, just to give that positive feedback. And we've kind of basically gone through this whole pandemic as if there is going to be a positive outcome for it. So I think that's just what we've been striving for. And I think ultimately that has brought us closer together because we're all working towards the final goal of being able to compete and just have a good season. And I'm very excited that it's still on the schedule and that we're getting the chance to play.
Meg, I know typically when an individual starts their career as a student athlete, they'll hear the phrase, enjoy it, it goes so fast. Well, now you're part of that. It's here you are. You mentioned that word senior. You're a senior now. And not to push you out the door because I want you to have that final competitive season. But can you tell us what you've been studying here at Bucknell and if you have any postgraduate plans at this point?
Yeah, so I'm a psychology major, but I took all of the pre-med courses. So I'm minoring in biology and I plan to pursue a career in genetic counseling. So I'm currently in the process of applying to graduate schools. I've had a few interviews. It's kind of a match process, so I won't really find out until end of April where I'm matched with what program. But yeah, I'm really excited to go into that field. I've had some internships with Geisinger, the local hospital, where I've worked with a lot of these genetic counselors and kind of learned more about the career in that way. And ultimately, I'm just excited to help people in that field with both counseling skills and like medical knowledge and terminology.
Goes back to the conversation we had with Aaron about balancing academics and athletics. Not only do you have to balance your final season, but you have to balance all that stuff as well. So good luck to you. I hope you have a great season and thanks for joining us today.
Thank you so much.
All right, and our final guest today is senior midfielder Sarah Dimick, who's from Bridgewater, New Jersey. She attended Bridgewater Raritan Regional High School. Welcome to the show, Sarah.
Thank you for having me.
All right, Sarah, same deal for you. We're not going to let you off the hook. Share with us how you wound up here playing hockey at Bucknell.
My answers don't vary much from Aaron and Megan's, but I think the most common thing for all of us is that when you come to campus and you get to know the team, it feels like home and it feels like you could have a place here. So just while looking at other schools, coming to Bucknell, the campus is beautiful, the academics are great, and the thing that stood out to me was the academic first concept that Jeremy puts on us. And I was like, that is something that I want for my college career. So yeah, just the balance of academics and field hockey was something that stood out to me for sure.
So Coach mentioned, as has Megan and Aaron as well, some of the challenges of trying to get you guys all together and keep you both physically and mentally prepared as you get ready for a season. What have some of those challenges been for you and how have you overcome those? And are there things that have happened during the pandemic that you think are certainly making you stronger as an individual?
Yeah, for sure. This has been a really challenging time, like not knowing what we're doing for school, what we're doing for field hockey, and it leaves us in a lot of uncertainty. But I think the thing I've noticed the most is that I'm very grateful to have a team to go through this with. It'd be very different to be on campus and dealing with this alone. But I think that it's made me a lot stronger in a lot of ways, just balancing school and field hockey in a different aspect than I've had in the years past. So taking on new challenges, becoming a more positive person in that sense has been something I've enjoyed getting to know about myself, taking on uncertainty. So.
There's no doubt that personal progression has certainly played a role for everyone in this environment and over the course of this year. And so you've been here for a few years now and have progressed both in the classroom and on the field. Sticking with the field, what do you really want to focus in on and for this spring? What aspect of your game and what is your focus as you now enter this spring season?
I think my biggest focus is just being a leader to the underclassmen when we're on the field, really like communicating where the lines are, where they should be. I know in practice a freshman has been playing the center mid spot, and so although we have a short season, I'm hoping to prepare the team the best for the fall, because that's going to be an amazing season for them coming off such like a high intense spring. So that's going to be my biggest focus, is just to leave something behind, hopefully.
So we just talked a little bit about your game. Now let's talk a little bit about your teammates' games. And this is a two-part question. So who are some of your teammates that Bison fans should keep an eye out for this spring? And here's a tough question for you. Who's a teammate or teammates on the team that you admire the most and why?
Oh, tough question, because I admire everyone. I think people should be looking out for Leah Fogelsanger. I mean, she is feisty. She is on it. She's done great training over the fall, and she's always been such a strong player for us. But like, wow, she's really kept up with everything. And even just getting back in these two practices, I think we could all agree that she amazes everyone when she plays. I admire a lot of people on this team. I think I admire Emily Doyle for her positivity at practice a lot. She just brings such a big energy to like the whole team. So that's something that not a lot of people could translate. But another person I admire, this is so hard. I admire a lot of people.
That's all right.
Caitlin
It's a tough
Long.
question.
Caitlin Long, I want to shout her out. She's been having to be contact traced twice so far, but she continues to be a part of the team in other ways. She's in quarantine right now, but she's reaching out to the freshmen, offering up, can I help you with lines if you need to call me, like helping out from her room in the gateways. She's struggling, but she's still really putting herself out there for the team, and that's awesome for her.
Sarah, you did a good job with the answer. That's a tough question to get on the spot with.
Well, Sarah, our final question for you, and again, not savor these moments and certainly not to speed anything along. We want to give you guys some time to play, but we do care and want to know, do you have any postgraduate plans yet at this time? And if you do, share, and even share what your plans are, what you're trying to pursue if there's nothing solidified yet.
Well, I'm an environmental studies major, econ minor here. I don't have any set in stone plans. I've been applying for all different kinds of jobs within the environmental studies field, but I think it's been awesome because it does relate to so many different things. Hopefully I could get into teaching eventually. That's something that I want to do. So I've been just trying to find my own path within that fits me, and hopefully I'll know soon. The sooner the better, for a second semester senior. But I'm looking forward to postgraduate plans. So.
Well, that's great. And I'm sure you'll do just great. And really appreciate you and your teammates joining us here this afternoon and wish you the absolute best as you take the field here in 6 days.
Thank you.
All right, well, that'll just about wrap up today's show. I want to thank all of our guests for joining us today and taking the time out. Thank you to Jeffrey Campbell, Ben Blumenthal, and Jess O'Shaughnessy for their assistance with today's event. Our next event in our season preview series sponsored by Giant will be tomorrow, March 2nd at noon, and it will feature the women's water polo program here at Bucknell. And as a reminder, you can find the complete schedule of our season preview shows on the Bucknell Athletics website. Thanks for joining us today, everybody, and go Bison.